pleased to be joined by the man himself, Ryan Hurd, here on MLB Central. What's that dynamic like working with your wife? I mean, I'm sure that there's people watching right now going, I wonder what it would be like to work with my spouse. What's that dynamic like?
It's cool. I mean, we have two separate careers that we do together. So I don't know. I think about like sports a lot and what that dynamic is like. Maybe like sort of like the Ertzes, football and soccer.
Yeah.
It's kind of, they're both athletes and they both have their own careers, but they're each other's biggest fan. And I don't know. People do it. We figure it out every day.
Ryan, is that the mindset? I came up with the Atlanta Braves, so I saw a lot of country music stars now come through and play the whole bar scene in Atlanta. And it's funny, all of them say the same thing. They went to Nashville as a songwriter.
Yeah.
I mean,
I started.
but didn't you want to be the star? Wasn't that always the end game?
I came to college in Nashville and I sort of saw behind the curtain. So when I saw this job, I wanted to be a writer, and I told people for the first couple of years that's all I really want to do, and that's how I started out. So my first song I had recorded was by a guy named Jake Owen, and then my first #1 was with Blake Shelton, and I thought that's what I was going to do for the rest of my life, and luckily I've gotten to do that, continue to do that while I've pursued my own project. But I look at what I do now as like kind of wearing a pair of shoes. There's like a left foot and a right foot, the writing for other people, and then my own project. And I can't really imagine doing one without the other now. It's been really just an amazing journey. And I'm really blessed to have gotten to kind of do everything you can do in country music as far as just like the experience of it.
Ryan, the music industry is vastly different than it was 10 years ago, certainly 20, 30 years ago. How do you as an artist view the process or albums themselves? How do you view that in how people consume them, and what's the message that you try to convey, when you're hearing this debut album?
Man, I think it's different the way that people listen to music, but I think albums are really important still. I think that like people still do want like that collection and those songs to be tied together. And it's sort of odd. It's sort of, you're fighting this need to constantly have content. But at the same time, you really want to put your stamp on what you do and mark your moments. And I always imagined myself being an album-based artist. And so I'm really blessed to get to release this one. It's called Pelago on October 15th. And I still think people love to hear albums top to bottom. And, you see vinyl come back in a big way. I think people love to have that big physical, like yes, they be able to touch the music still. And, I think that at the end of the day, music is it's the same as it was 20 years ago or 50 years ago. It's all about songs, and it's all about falling in love with something and wanting to find music that you can kind of live with for the rest of your life.
Ryan, you know what it's all about? The Braves being up with a 2.5 game lead with Philly coming to the house today.
Big one tonight.
Nashville, I know you kind of lean in the Atlanta Braves genre. How close are you following it?
Absolutely. I watch almost every game, at least an inning or two. Huge fan of. I grew up with the Braves just because my uncle lives in Atlanta and we were from Chicago, but he would fly us down for all these huge games. We went to like the 91 World Series, and we went to the All-Star game when I was 13 in 2000, and I got to see Chipper hit a home run, and Derek Jeter was the MVP. And I grew up in Kalamazoo, Michigan. So
you're 13 years old at this game?
Yeah. And so, or maybe 12. Yeah.
Wow.
So,
I'm getting.
Yeah, I was sitting.
There,
I was there, and that was like my favorite sports moment was this home run that you're showing. And Chipper actually, he signed a jersey for me, which is really cool. And my favorite player growing up. But being from Chicago, I've had so many opportunities with the Cubs, and I've always been, a Chicago sports fan too, and a Cubs fan. And it's kind of odd the way fandom works. It's sort of like different sides of the same coin a lot of the times. But I got to do the 7th inning stretch like Harry Carey 2 times, and I can sing in front of 20,000 people my own music. It doesn't bother me too much, but that is the scariest moment I think of my entire life as far as performances go, was doing that. After the ball game the first time.
Yeah, that and the national anthem, 2 kind of high wire acts. Hey, Ryan, Why is it that athletes and musicians seemingly
Like
are kind of drawn to one another? Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I think you see a lot of musicians that wish they were athletes. I think that you get used to people cheering for you in high school. You just keep going. I don't know how that works. I mean, it is amazing, like how many common threads you find with athletes and people who work in sports, and how much they love music and respect what, people like me do at the same time. And
Right.
it is amazing how many athletes you meet that wish they did music, and how many musicians you meet that wish they were still athletes. So I don't know. I think about guys that, like Matt Duchene from the Nashville Predators, is a huge guitar collector, and he loves to play and write. And so it is amazing how much just common ground you find with people who work in sports.
I think I've always said there's such respect to be able to command a stadium, to put yourself out there in front of everyone, knowing some people are going to tear it down, some people are going to love on you. It's not easy to put yourself out there.
I think maybe that's why you have that commonality, is just being in front of people and performing, whether it's athletically or musically. It is scary, and you do have to put yourself out there and kind of accept whatever the reaction is, whether it's good or bad. And that is not something that people generally have to go through in their day-to-day life. It is hard to get up there in front of people in a live audience and have to deliver.
Ryan, I want to add, you're coming from Chicago. Were your parents big country music listeners? And what drove from Chicago, Illinois? I can't imagine there was a huge groundswell of country flying around up there.
Not then. Right now, I think Chicago is the biggest market for country music.
Now it's blown up.
Wow.
In America. I mean, it is wild how big those shows have gotten up there. But I learned country music from the radio growing up. I mean, it was one of the stations that we had, like B93 in West Michigan, and Chicago has like one of the largest country stations in the country too. And that's how I came to country music, was just through listening to the radio. And Willie Nelson too is like my favorite singer of all time. My mom's a big John Denver fan, and I guess we could talk about folk or country there, but so I mean, there's always tons of music in my house growing up, whether that was church or that was, I mean, the first album I think I ever listened to was Let It Be by the Beatles, and then that Randy Travis album with Forever and Ever Amen, which is one of the classic country music albums of that time. And but I think like what I've seen growing up is that genre hasn't mattered as much. Those lines have been so blurred, and people have sort of started to consume everything. And I think I'm like the first of that generation that like grew up loving rock and roll and loving country on the radio and loving hip hop when it, I mean, I grew up with Nelly, and then I got to tour with him. So I don't know. I think that's sort of the way that I think a lot of people my age grew up, was that first, you didn't have to be a rock kid or a country kid. You could kind of pick what you loved from everything.
All right, so you're getting ready. Let's imagine you're getting ready to put on a big concert. What are you eating for breakfast that morning to get you ready?
I usually eat a banana for breakfast, and then have somebody make a really nice cup of coffee on the bus for me. That's generally what I do to get moving in the morning. Then we work out, and then usually have some downtime, and then may or may not do sound check. But yeah, it's a lot of, I mean, you guys are probably familiar with it. It's a lot of hurry up and wait. Yeah. So a lot of downtime.
The debut album, Pelago, out October 15th. Ryan Hurd is the artist. Ryan, congratulations on this album. I hope it goes well for you, and we will definitely be checking you out when it's available October 15th. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, guys. It's such an honor to be on your show. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.